This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Here on a Tuesday as we welcome you into Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network, Sirius XM channel 158. Stormy, Buonantony, and John Jastremski with you for the next 2 hours, holding it down. We're going to have plenty of fun. And I mean, you already had the fun last night, though. We were joking at the best bet segment yesterday that it was a day for the dogs. You had 3 underdog MLB plays. We were going to sweat it out, see how it went. They all end up coming through. So that's good juju for us today, including, by the way, a super weird one with Toronto and Boston. So kudos to you for the Blue Jays getting out of it.
Well, superstar Stormy, I appreciate the kind words right out of the gate. Yes, I am firing high on a Tuesday after a perfect 3-0 day. And, you know, since you're batting 1,000, I feel like I should just quit for the week, right? Like I should just walk off a winner. It's going to be tough to top that. We will do our best, of course, to try here on Tuesday. And yeah, the MLB card treated us well. We got a lot of news that's moving and shaking. So I'm fired up for the next 2 hours. Let's go.
I don't know how much you actually got to watch some of the bets that you had yesterday, but that 7th inning with Toronto and Boston was just, I still am not 100% sure what I watched in the 7th inning. And just to set the stage for some people, runners on the corners, Toronto's up 2-0 at that point. The center field scoreboard shows that there's 2 outs. So both runners went on contact, and then it ended up that it was a scoreboard error. And so they call up to New York. They're having the conversation, delay for 16 minutes. They end up putting a run on the board for Boston. I mean, it's not like it was inconsequential. Now all of a sudden there's a little bit of momentum for Boston. I feel like if I was in your shoes, I would have been sweating bullets.
I most certainly was. Now, full disclosure, out of the 3 bets that I had the most interest in, the Met-Brave game was, of course, near and dear to my heart because I had to come on right after the game on SNY. So I got to be a very dedicated SNY Sports employee. So that was my priority. But, Stormy, to that point, the Red Sox Blue Jays was my second screen in the office. And it would be the best way for me to equate what we saw in the 7th inning. Syracuse education, new high school, not a math guy. When I go back to my high school days, somebody could try to explain a math problem to me and do it 15 or 20 times and be like, do you got it? Do you got it? And then I would just have this bewildered, perplexed look on my face every time someone who is better at math would do this detailed and thorough analysis where I'd be like, yeah, just nodding along. Oh, yeah. I still don't know how you make sense of what happened with the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. So, yes, I was sweating bullets. But at the end of the day, the Blue Jays continue to beat up on the Red Sox. Make it make sense? That I cannot do.
Yeah, cashing tickets is what it's all about. And we'll talk more about that series a little bit later on, which is actually how we're going to set the table as we kick off the rundown today, talking a little baseball. Hit it.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
We're going to have some fun today with a little Cy Young arms race talk, some potential for market moves today with both Christopher Sanchez and Dylan Cease on the mound in the NL and AL respectively. Cease in particular, though, we have seen him and your boy Cam Schlittler go back and forth on the top of the odds board for Cy Young. Could Cease be in position to now put himself back as an odds-on number? Schlittler, as of right now, minus 125.
It's going to be a really fun race, Stormy. And look, Dylan Cease obviously has pitched brilliantly, started the All-Star game for the American League. He's got a little bit more pedigree than Schlittler, and some people wondering how Schlittler will handle the final 2 months of the year. Here's his advantage, though. He's going to be pitching in a whole lot of games that matter. Can't necessarily say the same thing for Dylan Cease, so keep that in mind.
Fair. We're going to talk through some awards markets, some additional futures, and of course the 15-game slate we have on deck today. We'll also get into some college football futures. They say it just means more in the SEC. But the last 3 years hasn't been so great for them in terms of winning national titles. Lance Taylor of the Next Round, he covers the SEC inside and out. We're going to get his thoughts on whether or not the league gets back to national titles in 2026 and potentially some win totals as well. Lots of new coaches in the SEC who he thinks could really take a step in 2026.
A lot of people on that Lane train, but I have circled a team that wowed us in the college football playoff where there is uncertainty with their head coach. I don't think there's any uncertainty with Trinidad Chambliss. I like the runner-ups of Ole Miss. So you mentioned new coaches. That's one that I have circled.
Yeah, could Chambliss be a Heisman contender this year? We'll see. That'll be a fun discussion a little bit later. But we're going to kick things off in the National Football League. Some interesting news today. KOC officially names his QB1. How about that this morning? The Vikings naming Kyler Murray their starting quarterback, putting an end to the competition with former first-round pick J.J. McCarthy. Interesting timing, though, I think, JJ, from one JJ to another. We had those conflicting reports over the weekend that we discussed a little bit yesterday about how McCarthy had actually outperformed Kyler Murray 2 of the last 3 practices over the weekend. Is there potential in your mind with some of that conversation and the magnifying glass on this quarterback room? He just wanted to put all the speculation to bed and say, all right, we're going with Kyler Murray. He's the guy.
So I think it's more, Stormy, the decision they made in the offseason. Like, I don't know about you. Like, I think the minute they signed Kyler Murray away from the Arizona Cardinals, their thought process was, he's our starter. We're out of the J.J. McCarthy business. So even if the competition may have been closer than anticipated, I think Minnesota always wanted to find themselves in a position where week 1, Kyler Murray was their guy. So whether the timing came out today or it came out in a couple of weeks, at the end of the day, this is the result I anticipated. Now we'll see if Kyler Murray can go and revive his career.
They did bring him in on the 1-year, $1.3 million deal. And honestly, like, yes, to your point, when they signed him, the expectation was that he was going to be the guy. So I actually thought twofold about the timing of this announcement. In one hand, with them calling this a competition the way that they did with McCarthy, I was like, okay, why do you name a quarterback now this early into camp? But then the second part of it is actually, is this late when we all assumed it would be Kyler Murray to begin with? Why not just hit the ground running and say, this is your guy and this is what you brought him in to do? Now I think, though, raises at least a little bit of a question of what you do with J.J. McCarthy, big picture. Do you think maybe he ends up getting traded to another team maybe that has a veteran aging gap year type quarterback, see if you can develop him? Like, what's the approach now with McCarthy moving forward?
So I think, Stormy, that's a conversation we have a year from now. I think for the Minnesota Vikings this year, a team that had all sorts of questions and all sorts of problems at quarterback, Kyler Murray's your guy. You try to continue to grow J.J. McCarthy. And, Stormy, I don't have to tell you this. How many teams, right, are going to find themselves with multiple quarterbacks throughout the year? A ton. Don't be surprised if Minnesota finds themselves in a position where they have to turn to J.J. McCarthy. Maybe it's in week 6. Maybe it's in week 10. I don't have the utmost confidence that Kyler Murray can go and play 16 or 17 games this season. So I would not be cutting bait yet. I think that's an off-season conversation for the time being in the here and now. Stick with both quarterbacks and have at least some form of option where if things don't go right, you at least feel good about your plan B.
Yep, Murray has missed 30 of a possible 68 games over his last 5 seasons. And we were talking a little bit yesterday about a reason why, you hate getting sucked in by the Arizona Cardinals because you know the inevitability of Kyler Murray getting worn down the second half of the season and not being the same guy. Potentially that happens again here in Minnesota, but the injury bug has certainly caught him over his career. He had the foot last year. He had the ACL before that. So we'll see if he can stay healthy in this one. Also, with some of the reports coming out of camp, I know he hasn't looked great. He's also learning a new offense at this point. That takes stages. But I wonder, too, if maybe this just has to do with how good Brian Flores' defense is going to be this year. And that's a unit that's going to be really formidable, getting after people week in and week out. They might make anybody look bad, let alone a guy who's just learning the offense. One feather in his cap that I was reading about with all the practice report stuff, JJ, and maybe if it was a true competition, and not that we think it is, but if it was a differentiator for Murray specifically, is that he was able to get more of the downfield passing game moving than we saw with McCarthy, and reportedly has a better relationship, at least chemistry-wise on the field, what we've seen with Justin Jefferson. And we know J.J. McCarthy, that's something he struggled with anytime that he was trying to get the ball, it seems like, to their star wideout. And when you have guys like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, you got to get them the football.
You hit on 2 absolute musts for the Vikings this year. They need big plays. When you have Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison as your wide receivers, that means you have to be able to stretch the field. The Vikings couldn't do that a year ago. Kyler Murray also is going to be able to extend some plays. I think that is the thought process of bringing him in. One, they're not paying him a lot of money, but I would expect a much better year out of Justin Jefferson. I think you're going to have a lot more big plays. And I get the sense, Stormy, when you're doing this show, as we get closer and closer to week 1, I think you're going to have a lot of people talking themselves into the Minnesota Vikings as a playoff team this year. I think they're going to buy on that Brian Flores defense. They're going to buy on the coaching staff. They're just going to look at, hey, they went 9-8 last year and they had no semblance of quarterback play. If it's just a smidge better, can't that get you to 10? Can't you get to 11? There's a case to be made for that. I, for one, am not going to make that case. You want to know why I'm not going to make that case? It's pretty simple. I'm out of the Kyler Murray business. Been there, done that, way too much PTSD. That is why I will be sitting on the sidelines and I will have absolutely no liability one way or another for an over-under on the Minnesota Vikings. But for what it's worth, if I had to make a play in a very loaded, very tough division, I lean towards the under at 8.5 wins.
Yeah, you said it. Win total 8.5 minus 110 each way where things sit. To make the playoffs, as you alluded to, as some people might have interest in, plus 154. But it sounds like you're not going to take a 40-1 on Kyler Murray for MVP.
No, I'll pass on that. I will pass on that. There were a couple of now. You nailed the very important part of the calculus, Stormy, with the MVP. Don't waste your time betting on a running back. Don't waste your time betting on a wide receiver. It is a quarterback award. Can Kyler Murray go and play 17 games? That'd be a nice place to start before I even fantasize about the possibility of MVP. Let's play all the games this year.
Real quick before we hit the break, this is one of a couple quote-unquote QB competitions, another one in Atlanta. Do you think it's the same situation where the one-year deal veteran guy ends up getting the job right away?
Yeah, and I wouldn't feel too good about it if I'm a fan of the Atlanta Falcons. I know Stefanski's there. I know they got crazy good skill position players. Tua looked absolutely shot last year. I'm a Miami Dolphins fan. I've seen every snap of the guy's career. I was his biggest defendant, proponent, all that good stuff. Can't move, can't throw. When that's the case, Stormy, you got problems.
We got a lot more news coming out of NFL training camps this morning. We're going to hit on it, tell you if it's bettable or forgettable, and more when we return. Stick around. VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is that you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. VSiN Pro gives you access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Just tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves Tuesday edition, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony and John Jastremski with you. We obviously started the day talking about the news of the NFL with Kyler Murray officially being named QB1 out there in Minnesota, but we got lots of news and notes, especially after we got off of the air yesterday, coming out of various NFL training camps. Let's start in Green Bay, where we actually asked the question on the show yesterday, what might be the timeline ultimately for Micah Parsons to get back out there on the field after tearing his ACL at the back end of last season? Well, he joined Stacey Dales and Brian Baldinger at camp over on NFL Network, had this to say when asked about the rehab process.
I'm feeling really good. I attacked my rehab the right way. I think, the staff is pretty happy. I'm pretty happy about where I'm at. And it's just about stacking days and then just saying how I'm feeling after week 4.
Is there a timeline, Micah? Do you have something in your mind? Like I see there's the Dallas Cowboys are on the schedule this year, Micah.
Yeah.
Like does that sort of get you a little excited maybe?
Mid-October-ish, right?
That's the most optimistic like that I can be back.
Yeah.
Of course, I can be later. There can be setbacks.
Yeah.
There can be trying to integrate back to football is completely different than running on cones and ladders in the indoor, which I'm obviously just finished doing before I do my lift.
I mean, that would be fun. Would love to see him back for that Week 6 game against Dallas, October 18th. Says that's the most optimistic return date, so potentially not available. But, JJ, let's start here. The Packers obviously had a significant decline after his Week 15 injury last year against the Broncos. Did not win another game, 0-5, including the playoffs down the stretch after the Parsons injury. What's your expectation for them early on in the year without Parsons available?
Well, I think you could see that defense struggle a little bit, Stormy, because not only are you not going to have Micah Parsons for the first 4 or 5 weeks, you're also talking about a scheme change. Jeff Hafley, the former defensive coordinator, now the head coach of my beloved Miami Dolphins. So anytime new defensive coordinator, new scheme, not having your best defensive player can lead to some problematic issues. So I'm not going to be surprised if you see the Packers in a spot first 4 or 5 weeks of the year, struggling on defense, needing to rely upon Jordan Love that much more. Here's the one thing I would say from a positive standpoint with the Packers. There's such a baseline of consistency that we've seen in the Matt LaFleur era. That team is good every single year. Now, you want to tell me they haven't gotten to the top of the mountain? Fair. You want to tell me they've had a lot of bitter playoff defeats? I mean, the San Francisco game at home, the Buccaneer NFC Championship game, the game at San Francisco they let slip away in the fourth quarter. Like, they've had a lot of games that have been nauseating if you're a Packer fan, including last year when they yucked it up against the Chicago Bears. But there's a baseline of getting into the dance and being able to overcome a bunch of different stuff throughout a regular season. I think LaFleur's team could go and do that again.
Packers are the second shot on the board behind who we like best in the division, the Detroit Lions. We'll discuss them in a moment. But Packers plus 225 in the NFC North on that beginning of the season schedule for Green Bay, because we know that for sure Parsons is going to start the season on PUP, so you miss at least 4 weeks automatically with that. The expectation, most optimistic, being week 6. So 2 division games in those first 5 weeks, opening the season at the aforementioned Minnesota Vikings. Also have the Bears in week 5. So not ideal not to have your best pass rushing option out there on the field for 2 key games when it comes to the division standings. Now, I want to follow this up because obviously part of Micah Parsons going to Green Bay freed up a whole lot of money for the Dallas Cowboys and allowed for Quinnen Williams to get the payday we saw him agree to yesterday. 3-year extension worth $105.9 million, 101 guaranteed, 63.35 guaranteed at signing. His average annual value now second highest among defensive tackles in the National Football League. But did Stephen Jones slight our boy Parsons in announcing his excitement for Quinnen Williams getting the new deal? Part of a quote that we saw from John Machado of The Athletic, covers the Dallas Cowboys as one of their beat writers, said of Williams, he's the best player on the field whenever he's out there. The other thing is just the man he is. He's a leader. We didn't have a lot of leadership on defense the last couple years. To have him and Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary, I think they really picked it up over here in terms of culture and leadership.
Yikes. That is not exactly flattering stuff for Micah Parsons. I'll say this about Quinnen Williams. He's with the Jets for a long, long time. He played on a whole lot of crummy teams. Very likable guy. Very hardworking guy. So I'm not the least bit surprised that he has really left a positive first impression his last couple months. And then, this whole offseason playing now as a member of the Cowboys. And Stormy, listen, you know this. I'm in the Cowboy business this year. I am playing him to win the NFC East. I think Dak Prescott is going to be a legitimate MVP candidate. That offense is loaded. That offense is going to pick up right where they left off last year. And I know there were questions about what the defense of the Cowboys is going to look like. They now have Quinnen Williams as a part of this defense for the full season. That is a huge deal. You go and add Caleb Downs, who I think has a chance to be one of the most impactful first-round draft picks, now sliding in to that Cowboys secondary. I think he'll go and make a couple of big plays. Cowboys going to be a playoff team. Cowboys are going to win double-digit games. And there was this sort of woe is me attitude after the Parsons trade went down. They got what they got. They freed up that salary cap space. Now they go and give it to Quinnen Williams and then add a couple of draft picks in return. Cowboys, big season awaits them. I don't know what it means come January, but at least in the regular season, they're going to win a whole lot of games.
And while I know, and you said it there, like we're still waiting to see exactly what this defense is going to look like for Dallas. It's going to be better because it can't be any worse, quite frankly, right? They were last in the NFL in points per game allowed, the only team to allow more than 30 last season, something that hadn't happened to them since their winless 1960 team. So just to give you a little bit of perspective, it ain't going to be that this year. So if there is a reason for optimism outside of just what you expect Dak Prescott and this offense to do and the operation you know that they're going to have, the defense should be a little bit better. I said that we had more to talk about with the Lions. Let's get out to Detroit, where their starting center, Cade Mays, is now expected to miss 8 to 10 weeks with a wrist fracture. He, of course, just this past offseason signed a 3-year, $25 million deal in March from the Carolina Panthers. And this is a team that used to have like this unbelievable offensive line. Now that unit has been a little bit in flux. It started last year when Frank Ragnow ultimately retired. They thought this was going to be the fix. What's the level of concern for you for the Lions up front? Significant
concern, Stormy. I like the Lions. You like the Lions. I'm not backing off of that. But here's the problem. Jared Goff is so reliant on that play action. He's so reliant on his offensive line giving him time. And I know when you have Jahmyr Gibbs, it's easy dump off. Hey, you can run Jahmyr Gibbs. That's great. If Goff is in situations where he's feeling the heat consistently, he's not the same quarterback. His play is going to suffer. The turnover rate is going to go up. I'm not saying this one offensive line injury is going to now be the be-all, end-all and that the Lions aren't going to be able to protect at all. But I think it's one of the biggest questions they have going into the season because the skill position talent is tremendous. They have a lot of premium players on the team. But how can you protect this quarterback? It's a huge question. And I don't want any offensive line issues going into the start of the season, especially a team like Detroit.
So I'll say, as you just said, and what we talked about yesterday when we previewed the Lions a little bit, that, I mean, we like the win total over. We like them to win the division. Because of the way that this timeline sets up and the ease of schedule that Detroit does have, I still feel good about it, big picture, as long as there aren't any long-term setbacks in his rehab and the offensive line that is out there is able to be cohesive enough to get by. You're not going to like week 2, obviously at Buffalo, but you open the season against New Orleans, week 3 against the Jets, week 4 at Carolina, week 5 at Arizona. 8 weeks from now puts him at week 5 of the NFL season. If it goes to the longer end of the timeline in the 8 to 10 weeks at the 10, gets you through the bye and potentially back before 2 big division games against Green Bay and Minnesota. So on the surface, at least, I think there's potential given that they have the easiest schedule in the National Football League and the route that they have at the beginning of the season, they'll still be good enough to get through.
Totally fair. And listen, you're going to go through a year plenty of times where you don't have all 5 of your starters healthy and available on the offensive line. So the teams that make it work, they're able to plug and play. Hey, that's 6th offensive lineman. Maybe it's moving somebody from guard to center. Just finding a way to make it work. If the Lions are going to be a team that's going to win double-digit games and get back to being a powerhouse within the NFC, that depth on the offensive line will show up in a big way.
One other injury just to keep an eye on for Detroit, Isaiah Pacheco dealing with an MCL sprain. It's going to cost him some time in the preseason, but Dan Campbell did say the expectation is he'll be ready to go come week 1. So at least a positive in what is an unfortunate situation for the RB as well. And with football being back, it's a good reminder to everybody, those Lions bets that we just discussed, I have a full write-up on it over on our NFL betting guide that is only available if you are a VSiN Pro subscriber, but the guide is unbelievable. It's over 100 pages of just deep dive content, diving into specific teams, but also best bets across the entire league, awards markets, vsin.com/subscribe. If you're a full-time subscriber, in addition to the guides, you also get everything we do with the website each and every day, unlimited access to the articles, the prop tools, the betting splits. Again, vsin.com/subscribe. You can sign up for as little as $9.99 or get 50% off the annual subscription when you sign up today. More football coming up, but we're going to go college football edition. Excited to have Lance Taylor join the program, break down all things SEC. Can they get back on top and win a national title after a 3-year hiatus? And are there any potential SEC sleepers we aren't talking enough about? We'll discuss it all coming up on VSiN.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
One of my favorite parts of this college football offseason has been the offseason battle for supremacy of who the best conference really is and all of the back and forth between the SEC and the Big Ten. But it actually does make for an interesting argument when you look at the odds board for this season and who's going to win a national championship, because the SEC, for all of its dominance historically, hasn't won the national title the last 3 years. Can they get back on top? Stormy Buonantony, John Jastremski with you. Excited to have Lance Taylor join us, help us talk it all through, co-host of the Next Round live weekdays from 9 to noon Central, covers SEC, college football, all things really. You can also follow him at the Lance Taylor and at Next Round Live. Lance, what's going on? And what say you? Does the SEC get back on top and win a natty this year?
Well, Stormy, John, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is my debut on VSiN. I have listened and watched for a long, long time. I don't know. If you ask me field or SEC, I probably lean field because the fact of the matter, we're deep in SEC country. The fact of the matter is the Big Ten's won 3 consecutive national championships. The SEC hasn't even played for one over those 3 national championship matchups. Since Georgia won back-to-back national titles, the SEC's kind of been laying dormant. I do think top to bottom, the SEC probably has the overall, if we did one of these SEC Big Ten challenges and you went 1v1 and 16v16, the SEC might come out on top. But, where you are right now with Ohio State and obviously what Indiana just did, and then going back to Michigan, the first title of the run, you got to say the Big Ten is the best.
No question. And listen, if Stormy gave me a free $100, I could play the field to the SEC. I'm gladly playing the field with Notre Dame, with Oregon, with Ohio State, on and on we go. But I do want to look at the SEC. It seems like a 2-horse race. Georgia Bulldogs, Texas Longhorns. If it's going to be somebody other than the big 2, Lance, who's a team we should keep an eye on?
I think it's Oklahoma, John. I know I'm going to be the minority here. When you look at Oklahoma's schedule, it is difficult. But, all these schedules in the SEC are difficult. I think Oklahoma's going to be favored 9 games. They're probably going to be a dog in the big house. Week 2 against Michigan, they'll be a dog when they go to Athens to take on Georgia. And then in the Red River Shootout, they're probably a dog on neutral turf against Texas. But you look at the defense. Brent Venables finally gets it dialed in. They finished 24th in 2024. Last year, they finished 6th overall. Defense is returning good majority of their production. If John Mateer can round into form, and if you would have told me coming into 2025 there will be one transfer quarterback in the SEC that will dominate, I would have said it was Mateer. Instead, it was Trinidad Chambliss coming from Ferris State. If Mateer can come in healthy, finally has weapons, Satania's coming back, Parker Livingstone going from Texas to Oklahoma, that's a wild situation. Terrell Harris coming in for West Virginia. You've got weapons now offensively for Mateer. If he can stay healthy, a lot of people believe it was the thumb injury against Auburn that kind of derailed the season. I think Oklahoma is going to be really good finishing off of that 10-win season last year. They hosted a playoff game, had a double-digit lead on Bama, blew that game, and I think they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. So to me, Oklahoma is that team right now.
Plus 1150 for them in the conference. And yeah, we saw the way that the season just changed and how different he looked following that injury. So if he can get back to the guy that he was the front end of the season, that defense stays that defense, they could be a really fun team to watch. You mentioned Alabama, and the Tide did ultimately get the revenge against Oklahoma in that second matchup, but things didn't go the way that they wanted to. They lose to eventual national champion Indiana in pretty tough fashion. And I think a lot of Alabama fans, like you're out there in Birmingham, I'm sure that you hear a lot of it, are starting to feel a little bit antsy about what is this going to be like under Kalen DeBoer. We're still trying to figure things out post Nick Saban. What are your expectations for the Tide this year, and can they take the step they need to?
I got to be honest, Stormy, I am not a member of Mensa, but I do think when you go from 9 wins to 11 wins, and you go from not making the college football playoff as basically the last team out SMU was in, and you go to making the college football playoff, playing for the SEC championship, and winning a game in the playoff, it is you are from one season to another, you are improving. Alabama fans don't believe that. They want championships. And I brought this up on our show today. We were talking about John Summerall, and just John Summerall seems to say all the right stuff at Florida. He's talking about toughness. We got to revamp this thing. And I really wonder the percentage of Alabama fans that would trade Kalen DeBoer, a guy that has got much bigger resume, a guy that has played for a national championship, if they would trade for a guy like John Summerall, because this just seems like a soft team. You go back last year, they gave up over 30 sacks. They averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry, which is absolutely pathetic. To be able to win 11 games in the SEC, play for the conference championship, go to the postseason, win a game with those type of numbers it's baffling. But I do think the defense is going to be really, really good this year. The offensive line, although it might not be as talented, it's got to be better, and they've got to find a way to run the football. The question right now is who the quarterback's going to be. Everybody thought it would be 5-star sensation Keelan Russell coming back for his redshirt freshman year, but Austin Mack followed that staff from Washington, was a backup for Penix. He's been a backup the last couple of years. We saw him for a minute in that Rose Bowl blowout against Indiana. But everybody that I have talked to in camp said it is ultra tight. And Ryan Grubb, we heard from the offensive coordinator this morning for Alabama, he said it's tight, too close to separate right now. I do eventually think Keelan Russell will be the guy, though.
All right, Lance, no love lost between Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss fans. I'm curious this year because Lane Kiffin goes to LSU. Then you have Ole Miss that still has Trinidad Chambliss, but a new coaching staff. Who, at the very least, is going to get the last laugh this year? Who wins more games? LSU Tigers, Runner Revs at Ole Miss?
I think it's a great question, John. I think both. LSU has a difficult schedule, but Ole Miss has a next-level schedule. Everybody's going to circle September 19th in Oxford with LSU rolling back. That is going to be one of the most contentious. We saw Lane Kiffin he had the golf balls and the water bottles and the beer thrown at him when he was in Knoxville a few years ago. This is going to be like next level. I love Pete Golding. If there's one coach I want to pull for, it's Pete Golding. The sound bites are amazing. Pretty incredible job navigating that team to the semifinals last year. I think he's definitely got the better quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. Very interested to see Sam Leavitt and how healthy he is coming back in for 2026. LSU coming off 7 wins. There's guys out there like Jordan Rodgers from the SEC Network that say anything less than playing for a national championship is a disappointment. I do think the offense is going to be better immediately. I mean, we're talking about an offense that was dead last in running the football in the SEC. I mean, Alabama was pathetic, and then LSU was even worse than pathetic. When it's all said and done, I think Ole Miss is the better team, but the records are going to be close. I'm not going to ride the fence on it. I will say that Ole Miss 9 wins to LSU's 8 wins.
Outside of Kiffin and Golding, 4 other new head coaches in the league this year. Sumrall, who you already mentioned, Alex Golesh over at Auburn, Will Stein at Kentucky. I thought it was interesting. The most played over bet in the SEC is the over 4.5 for Kentucky. So look at that. And Ryan Silverfield with Arkansas. Of that batch of new head coaches, relative to their expectations, who are you most excited about?
Well, John Sumrall is one of those guys, but just locally, Stormy, us here originated out of Birmingham. We're an hour and a half away from Auburn. And I thought, so what do I know? I thought Hugh Freeze was a slam dunk. I thought it was a great hire for Auburn. That obviously didn't work out. Auburn has not had a winning season, or they haven't had a non-losing season since the pandemic, where they went 500. It's just been a terrible run. It's been their worst 5-year run of football since World War II. So you got to go way back to get to these kind of numbers. With that said, I think they're favored in 7 games. You're bringing in a really experienced quarterback that can be electric at time in Byron Brown. You're bringing in 24 total transfers from South Florida, a South Florida team that won 9 games, a very competitive American last year. And I think if you talk to Auburn fans, I don't think they believe this is going to be Kurt Cignetti going from JMU to Indiana in year 1. But I think they are optimistic they could find 8 if everything breaks right, 9 wins. So to me, Alex Golesh in Auburn, I mean, this is one of those proud, borderline top 25 all-time programs that really is looking to get over the hump. And I do think this is a good hire.
Yeah, Lance, our colleague here at VSiN, my usual co-host, actually, Jonathan Von Tobel, he wrote up the SEC for our college football betting guide. And one of his questions for Auburn was, can USF win in the SEC with all of the transfers that he brought over with him from South Florida? Lance, excellent debut.
Hey, they did last year. They beat Florida.
Yeah, fair. Oh, no, I was saying, go ahead.
I missed your last question. No, I was just saying they start out the season 2-0, beating Boise and Florida, and then Miami hands it to them. But I like what I'm seeing from these guys. I mean, you got a complete flip with receivers. Guys like Cam Coleman going to Texas. You bring in the top 4 receivers from South Florida. They've got parts there. The tempo is going to be fun. Alex Golesh's offense were always fun to watch at South Florida.
No, it's great. All I was saying was I was complimenting you. Great VSiN debut. You nailed it, and we really appreciate your time and insight. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, anytime, guys. Really enjoyed it. Thank you, guys.
Lance Taylor, everybody. Again, make sure you check out the next round weekdays, 9 to noon Central, and lanceslocks.com as well. He's handicapping a variety of sports in addition to the SEC. We need to step aside here real quickly, turn into Major League Baseball after this. We've got a loaded 15-game slate and potential awards markets on the move. You won't want to miss it.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Football starts this week, which means the NFL season is right around the corner, which means it's contest season, and you need to book your trip to Vegas today if you want to play in any of our NFL contests from anywhere in the world. Winner's Circle Proxy, of course, is the place to go after your required in-person registration. They're going to handle the weekly submissions so you can make your pick from anywhere, anytime. One trip to Vegas, play all season long. Schedule your appointment now over at winnerscircleproxy.com. Again, that's winnerscircleproxy.com. JJ, you will have a proxy. My proxy, even though I live here, my husband does it for me, but he is not nearly as reliable as Winner's Circle Proxy. I have actually debated.
No, Winner's Circle is great.
Right? Like, I've debated if I actually need to end up getting a true proxy service and go with Winner's Circle, because sometimes I'm worried my husband's not going to ask me to fill in the information that he needs to do. And I'm on the road for college football. I get anxiety like crazy.
You're putting a lot of faith and a lot of confidence in your husband, who I'm sure is most certainly up to the challenge. That is, I don't want to sell your husband down a river, because I'm going to be glass half full on this. I'm going to say that he delivers for you and finds a way to get it done. But on that note, though, Stormy, I had to make sure that August 31st and September 1st, I am booked. I am signed, sealed, delivered in Vegas. I'll be at the circuit at some point. I might be like knocking on the window, like after my round of golf, and I'm like 7 Modelo's deep. And I'm like, hi, Stormy. I just got off a terrible round of golf. How's Money Moves going today? And I make my yearly donation in 2 million and Survivor. In another lifetime, I'll get to be in the Grandissimo, but not in that tax bracket quite yet. One day.
I'm going to expect the knocking at the door now. I will be actually extremely disappointed if I don't see you that weekend, making it happen. While we're talking schedule, though, you're scheduled to fly out here. My schedule on the weekends during college football season, I feel like I've totally buried the lead today, given that my producer, Justin Emery, is a Philly guy. And you are obviously the king of New York. The NBA schedule release coming out earlier this morning, and we get the news on opening day. We get the 76ers in MSG taking on your Knicks. LeBron's debut with the banner getting raised ultimately out there in the world's greatest arena. What a night we're going to have to kick things off in the association.
Yeah, Stormy, absolutely awesome. Not the least bit surprised that the league decides to go with LeBron and the Sixers and their new look and their new vibe against the reigning, defending NBA champions. Just saying that off the tip of my tongue is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And even though the parade has happened, even though the bet has registered, and you saw Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, the whole deal. I did 2 hours of parade coverage. Like, it happened. I witnessed it. I feel like the idea of processing that the Knicks won a championship won't officially hit me until I see that banner go up to the rafters at Madison Square Garden. And, up next to Billy Joel and Harry Styles and the 94 Rangers Cup, it'll be like 72, 73. I'm like, they'll never have to worry about hanging one of these ever again. And it will be 25-26 New York Knicks NBA champions. Oh, it's beautiful. And as cool as that opening night game is, Stormy, I have to admit the Christmas game is right there, because now I get to go. I shouldn't say I get to go. I don't do anything. I don't shoot the baskets. I don't play. The New York Knicks, get to go and give Wemby another disappointment. They gave him a lump of coal in the NBA Finals where he choked a variety of different games. Now on Christmas Day, Wemby can go and get another lump of coal. I love this. This is amazing. Symmetry.
Yeah, Spurs at Knicks on Christmas Day, as is 76ers at Lakers, Heat at Celtics, Thunder at Timberwolves, Nuggets at Warriors. I know that the NBA is doing everything they can to get Christmas back. This was supposed to be their holiday. It was supposed to be the time on the schedule where everybody actually really starts to dive in and pay attention to the NBA. But the Christmas NFL slate, I'm sorry, it's the NFL's day now. Packers at Bears, Bills at Broncos, Rams at Seahawks. As far as holiday sports content goes, unbelievable. Mm-hmm.
That's a badass NFL schedule. Now, I want to caution everybody. Last year at this time, Stormy, you would have looked at the Christmas matchups and you would have said, wow, these games are going to be so awesome. Cowboys Commanders had absolutely no juice. Game meant nothing. Lions and Vikings meant very, very little. And then remember, there's no way the Christmas night game is going to be bad. It's Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's the Broncos. And then I was watching who at quarterback for the Chiefs? I can't even remember who it was. It was some guy running the Wildcat. I remember I took Kansas City. They were like plus 14.5. I said, you know what? I really shouldn't be betting this game, but I'm going to bet it because it's Christmas night. I get a little zen. I get a little peace and quiet. Everybody's asleep. Whole deal. Too much presents, too much festivities. And that game ended up being a dud. So these matchups look great now. Let's hope that they deliver in a couple of months.
Chris Oladokun, never forget, okay? Come on, let's go.
There you go. Well played. I'm glad you knew. I forgot his name already.
But no, it's hopefully it is a little bit more fun and we get the people that we expect to get and we get the high leverage matchups that we expect they're going to be. But regardless, the holiday slate is going to be awesome. We as sports fans are so spoiled with what that's ultimately going to be. We'll talk more football and all of that stuff a little bit later on, but we do have a lot of baseball to get to today. So at least let's start that conversation now. 15 game slate coming up later on this evening. No day baseball though today, which is a little bit disappointing. You are the king of the diamond. So where do you want to start?
I'll start with the Red Sox and the Blue Jays. And I think we hit on this, Stormy, yesterday. Despite the brilliant stretch that the Red Sox had in reviving their season, going 31-5 in 36 games and really solidifying their place as far as being a playoff team, look, they're in good shape as far as the wild card is concerned. You have to imagine there's going to be some sort of a market correction for the Red Sox who just can't continue to play this brand of baseball. I'm sorry, they are not that good. They are not that special. And I think we could take advantage of this with the Toronto Blue Jays here, who, for whatever the reason, over the last couple of years, have given Boston fits. And this year, despite Toronto having a disappointing year and they're 6 games under 500, they've played the Red Sox tough. Now, I don't love the way this line is moving today. It's a Dylan Cease start. It opened up around 150, and now you look over at DraftKings, you're seeing it at 136. So a lot of my betting instincts would say, now's the time to go and jump in on Boston. I'm not playing this game. I think you'll have a lot of people lining up to the window, though, to go and bet Dylan Cease. He's one of the best pitchers in the American League. You mentioned how he's neck and neck with my buddy Cam Schlittler to go and be American League Cy Young Award winner. I would expect the books, shockingly tonight, Stormy, are going to need the Red Sox. You may have to check behind the window at Circa and get some clarification on this. My guess is, despite the Red Sox being super hot, I bet the public choice is Cease tonight.
Well, it's 3 in a row now for the Red Sox. It's officially a streak now, a losing streak for the Red Sox. When you get 3, does the backslide continue? We'll see. Cease, mind you, not only has he been great this season, but particularly recently, 6 starts since July 3rd, over 43 innings, just 4 earned runs allowed, 56-12 strike to walk ratio. That's pretty good last I checked. Another game I know you had some interest in today, Brewers and Padres. My Padres stringing together a nice little run here. They've won 3 in a row, including the series opener against Milwaukee yesterday, 3-2. And this is a team that went from a potential seller to a buyer. They're back in the thick of it now for the NL wild card, just a game back of that final spot. What are you looking at today?
So I have to admit defeat. Stormy, I thought a couple weeks ago I'm filling in with Paulie, All-Star break. I said, you got to be all over the Padres under 81.5 live win total for the season. Because I, to the point you just made, thought Mason Miller was going to get traded. I didn't love the way they were performing offensively. The vibe was off. I'm like, the Padres are going to go in the gutter. This is going to be a team that's not heard from this year. Well, I think since I've made that proclamation, Stormy, they've done nothing but win. So if the Padres go and make the playoffs, thank you. You're welcome. All of the above. I'm taking the credit for this one. But as far as this game tonight, look, I like the Padres. The line opened Milwaukee around a 130, a 135 favorite. Public seems to be in on Milwaukee because Harrison is on the mound. I'm not. I think plus money with the hotter team is the play, is the vibe here. I'm going to keep the Padres going with their winning ways. And we get the best bets a little bit later on the show. San Diego Padres is going to be a part of that card.
Plus 110 price at Petco tonight for the Padres. See if they can get it done against what is the best team in baseball right now, Milwaukee, with your top record in the sport at this point. San Diego, you're not getting the same number you were previously on them to make the playoffs, obviously, with this run that they've been on, but still plus money, plus 110, plus 105, depending on where you look when all is said and done. Did want to say, and yes, we'll get to more baseball a little bit later on, I failed to mention with the NBA schedule release, we've got numbers now too, JJ. So we already know 76ers at Knicks.
Exciting.
New York, a 4.5-point favorite on banner night.
I was going to guess 5 points. I was going to guess 5. Do we have Christmas Day lines too or no?
We do. At DraftKings right now, there is a tab for opening day and a tab for Christmas.
Can I guess the Knicks Spur line? Can I guess it? Knicks -1.
Dude, your nails. It's 1.5.
Ooh, okay. Nice.
1.5.
I'm proud of myself. I promise. No cheating. No cheating. I promise.
Well, I mean, I believe you because you asked me if we had odds yet, and I was just quick to the trigger. Total in that game, 228.5. Some high totals, actually, for some of these games already, but leave it to the books to get ahead of these things. As soon as those games are released, we got odds, ladies and gentlemen. We got to step aside. Coming back, kicking off hour 2 of VSiN's Money Moves next.